a red flag flying here.
Hi. Just say hello to everybody, shall we? Paul, hello.
Hello.
Are you better now?
Better than what?
You've been under the weather for the last few weeks, to be honest. Paul.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel okay now. Starting to feel okay. Bit of pain in the nose, but it's kind of straight, so it's okay.
So, Stuart, hi. Everything okay with you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Decent.
Looking forward to your moment of the week, which I know what it's going to be. Hiya, Sam.
Hi.
Now, you've been meeting, you used last week's meeting to renew an old friendship, didn't you? And I've seen that you've been...
Yeah, so I've known Lucy for sort of 6 years, and she used to volunteer. She started off volunteering for my organisation with the slings and the babies and things, and then we set up an organisation together, and that didn't work out, but not all businesses last 20 years. Some businesses just exist in a moment and they fulfill their purpose, and then you get on with your life. But because she then got into her life of having to work 0 hours contracts and all kinds of things, we kind of lost track of each other. So it's nice now that obviously, as we all know, when you are working every hour God sends, it's hard to catch up with people. So she's not currently working, so I managed to catch her today.
Yeah, saw it on Facebook, sort of. Your life is an open Facebook. Of course, if you're listening, Lucy was last week's candidate. You, in the Labour Party, you just don't stand as a candidate in the election. You've got to go to the branch and ask them to make you their candidate. So you are a candidate, and last week it was Lucy, and we've got a candidate waiting in the wings already, and we'll introduce you to that person sort of in about 20 minutes time. But before we do that, it's time for... I'm going to start with you, Stuart, because you've been kind enough to share what you were going to have as your moment of the week. Moment of the week.
Yesterday, I was in a meeting between my union branch, Unite Community, Durham and Teesside, and some Labour Party members from across Durham to try and organise and get to grips with how we wanted to tackle community activism across Durham for the foreseeable, and kind of understand how we get trade unionism and the Labour Party itself back into communities, what were the goals, and where we were going with it. And it was really positive. It's really the brainchild of Andrew Hedges, who's a member in Northwest Durham. He's really been pushing it, and he's got a lot of energy, and he's saying exactly what I think we all want, and that is to, get into our communities, be part of the structure, reclaim our, cultural parts of these villages, these towns, reclaim our community assets, everything from, cricket pitches that went away in the 80s to getting cash points back in the town to make sure people could get cash for free, and finding ways that allow members of communities to actually get involved in tackling these problems. Almost, a gateway drug to politics was just to get people involved in making a change on their doorstep. And it was really positive, and it's a big first step, I think, for what should be a really big thing over the next few years.
I mean, that is just so fantastic. I mean, I think it's clear that Labour needs to re-establish the community's trust in it as a party. And anybody who's been to a branch Labour Party meeting knows that it's not going to do that through the existing branches. And so we look to the unions to provide this drive and this vision, and to people like yourself, Stuart. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Oh, Sam, moment of the week.
I didn't check that nobody else was going to do this, so if this was yours, sorry. I'm going to bring up the situation in Poland at the moment, and their current kind of civil unrest almost that's happening over their attempt at tightening up the abortion limits they've got. As it stands currently, because they haven't put the new law in place yet, an abortion is banned unless the woman's health or life is endangered by the pregnancy, if the pregnancy is a result of a criminal act, or if there's a high probability of a severe or irreversible fetal impairment. And they're trying to take away the fetal impairment bit, and it's caused huge protests across the country. The change in the law was meant to come into force like now, and it hasn't. It's been delayed. So there's a hope that maybe the protests have paid off there, and they've managed to draw a line in the sand. I just think it's really important to be aware of these things that happen in other countries, because they absolutely can happen here. They absolutely can happen in America. And we need to make sure that we don't let our country become the type of country that forces a woman to carry a child, knowing that it will, maybe live a very short and painful life once it's born.
Or live a very long and painful.
Or a long and painful life. This is a hard one for me, because actually, not knowing the context to start with, all I heard was what's the thing where you kill a certain type of person?
Euthanasia?
No, the one where you kill a whole type of person.
Genocide.
Genocide, no. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, I am in favour of disabled people being born and being allowed to live. And I generally balk at any judgment that
Eugenics was what you were
There we go.
thinking.
Eugenics.
Yeah, anti-eugenics, yeah.
Yeah, so I have strong feelings about that, but at the same time, there's a difference between having a disability like autism or Down syndrome, where you can live a life, rather than something that is going to just make you live a life of total misery in a country which might not be set up with the support in place to help you live that life. So that, I did have to check my opinions on this one, but yeah, definitely, it's just horrendous, and we have to be aware that a woman's right to choose is so important. Nobody is entitled to anybody else's body to sustain their life, whether that's you or my mom or a child that I have conceived.
I mean, what always strikes me about this, Sam, is that the very people who are the pro-life people who are sort of demanding that you got yourself pregnant by accident, you have to carry that through to term. You have no right to go for an abortion. They're the same people who have been saying, well, they shouldn't be feeding these children. What are we talking about feeding these children for? Sort of, you had the child, now you've got to be responsible for feeding it. Sort of, you're on your own, sort of, and who sort of look down on single parent mothers. And there is just an evil there. And Poland is a very worrying situation, because it's not just in this, that it's moving very hard to the right at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's always worthwhile keeping an eye on these things. Interesting. Thank you very much for sharing that. Paul, moment of the week for you.
Just a brief one for me. It's a huge topic, but I think Laura in the chat will post a thread that's on Twitter that I'm talking about, and it's from Joe Morn QC. And what it is, it's around isolation suits and government contracts for isolation suits. To cut a long story short, 708 million, I believe, has been spent on these basically hazmat suits. So contracts to provide them. One contract for over 200 million went to an interior design company with links to the Conservative Party. And I don't know what an interior design company is doing with these suits. But anyway, 708 million in contracts, 13 million of suits have been ordered. 13 million pounds worth of suits have been ordered.
This Maughan chappie, Maughan. Mom, you need to watch his Twitter feed because he's hot on this. This is not the first scandalous contract scandal that he's unearthed. I saw that on Twitter a couple of days ago, and it's just mind-boggling. And I mean, Paul, nobody seems to give a damn. I mean, is it that people don't know about it, or that they've just become inured to the facts, or do they actually approve that? I mean, how are they getting away with it?
I think it's so far removed from people's lives, and I don't think people understand that it really happens. It's like someone says it and goes, "It's terrible," but they don't really understand what it means. It means that they are giving money, and when they always say taxpayers' money, which is a nonsense anyway, it's public money because it's spend and tax, not tax and spend. And I'll keep saying this and I'll keep saying this until people start to really understand this. However, when they go on about this, Rishi Sunak put out this preposterous video about how we're going to have to pay all this back. Well, you don't have to pay all this back because that's not how economies work at this scale. But he was saying, well, you've got to pay that back then. If you believe that, you've got to pay back the 695 million that they have been given to friends of the Tory party in contracts to provide nothing. That's not 13 million. Okay, fine. They've spent that, but what about the rest? What about the rest? They haven't provided these things. And I think it's such a massive scale that people kind of forget about it. And I don't think they believe that people would be that corrupt. I think deep down, people are generally good and they don't realize the extent to which people will be corrupt. That is a deeply corrupt thing to do.
I think it's what you say about numbers as well all the time, Paul, that they can understand the person next door who is cheating on the benefits and getting perhaps 20, 30 pounds a week extra. They can understand that and they're outraged by that. Somebody runs a scam for 100 million, the mind just explodes, and you that's for somebody else to worry about that. And absolutely. Anyway, thank you very much for those moments of the week. I had a moment of the week, but I'm not going to share it because one, I'm the host and never do, and secondly, because it would be deeply libelous. So I'm going to move on to.
Now it's time for the big story.
And the big story today, as chosen by listeners, is Jeremy Corbyn's suspension from the Labour Party. Kick us off, Stuart. Facts only, please. What on earth has been going on?
Let's say the EHRC had released their report into anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Keir Statement then made a public statement describing, the feelings around it, what we were going to do as a party moving forward, the rebuilding of relationships and trust. Jeremy Corbyn then tweeted his opinion on the matter. Jeremy Corbyn was then swiftly suspended and the whip removed, which has damaged our membership numbers. We've seen people leaving, and there's been, online outcry over the whole situation. People haven't had time understanding the reasoning behind Jeremy Corbyn's suspension, rather than an investigation into the comment. People are concerned about their own membership, how safe they feel as members themselves, and it's kind of spiraled.
Thank you very much indeed. A succinct expression, not only of what happened, but of some of the outworkings of that, some of the implications. I'm going to come to you, Sam. Was this a good move by Starmer or a bad move by Starmer?
Now, good and bad, they are subjective terms, aren't they? My position is that this suspension is not in line with the rules of the Labour Party. There are rules as to how you go about suspending someone, and in fact, the EHRC report said those suspensions should not happen for political reasons, and lots of people see this as a suspension that has not happened in the rules and as an attack on some members. I'm not saying that's my opinion, but that is, well, no, I am saying that's my opinion. But this is the thing, we're here again. We've been here before on the show. You know, we've got 4 people here. We are all deeply committed to anti-racism. We are all deeply committed to the Labour Party. And we are terrified of saying the wrong thing in case we get kicked out of the party. One of the things that was in the ERC report was about training. And I know that I personally have been seeking training and actively engaging in my own training about this matter for the last 5 years. I just, you know, yes, please train me now. I want to do this right. I desperately want to do this right. And I know that many of us do. So I don't think any members should be suspended not following the rules of the party. Doesn't matter who they are.
One of the things that's come out of it is that they've done, I mean, YouGov, but sort of YouGov did a poll, and 80% of the general population believe that Starmer did the right thing. And 60% of the Labour Party members questioned said that Starmer had done the right thing. Although technically rules might have been broken, do you see that it was perhaps a necessary act politically to make that statement? I mean, has Starmer played a blinder, or has he made the most dreadful mistake?
Well, I mean, we know the approval rating for Corbyn on the streets. It was not good. Whether that's justified or not is a total another conversation. But I do think, yes, probably in terms of public opinion, it's good to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. But it's just one of these. And the other thing is, and I appreciate, we've talked about this before as well, just because something is illegal doesn't mean it's like not the right thing to do. So just because it's not in the rule book doesn't mean it could conceivably be the right thing to do to summarily dismiss a member of the Labour Party. And honestly, that day, you know, I was turning the air blue in here because I was just saying, why couldn't he just be quiet just for a bit? Just for today, don't say anything. Because unfortunately, like Stuart said, I've also got an inbox full of members who are leaving, and it's heartbreaking. These are really committed activists, and it's not just about losing a number on a spreadsheet. You know, I'm seeing half of my leafleters go. These are hardworking activists. I don't know how we are going to do the next election.
I'm coming to you, Paul, in 2 seconds, and so I'm sorry if we're trampling on you. I'm just going to stay with you for 2 seconds about that. I mean, I have people contacting me and saying, far from just Corbyn, we need to be slinging your social democrats, not social democrats, your democratic socialists out of the party, that there's no room in the Labour Party for democratic socialists, which is hilarious because that's what it says on the back of your membership card. But sort of, you know, it's sort of, and a very prominent member of the local party, the local Sedgefield Labour Party, tweeted, Corbyn has gone, now let's make sure that all the rest of them follow him.
Yeah.
And sort of, now, I mean, is this the opening of a civil war?
Well, yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of, I'm vice chair of my constituency, actually currently acting chair. I do a lot of work to try and get members to see through each other's eyes and try and build a consensus between people with different political opinions. And absolutely sort of breaks me to think that all the work I've done and people would want me to be removed from the party just because I'm quite lefty in the way that I consider the world should be set up. So no, I don't think it's right. And I have seen that sentiment, and I've also seen sentiment of people who are of the right of the Labour Party pushing people, like encouraging people to leave, like pretending they're leaving, and go on, Corbyn's out, you need to go now. And it smacks of like an old boys club. It's yeah, it's just really disappointing. It's a bad time, and I should have said this first. Solidarity with the Jewish community. I do feel for them. They have clearly been through a lot, and we do need to actually take some time to be humble. Um, and some people, and I would say Jeremy Corbyn, need to know when to stop talking and start listening.
Thank you very much indeed. One of the things I'm trying to do in this discussion is to separate the EHRC judgment, which we all agree.
We all agree.
What's happening in the Labour Party at the moment, which is actually something we can discuss quite safely. Paul, you got as long as you want on this. I've kept you waiting there in the wings. I apologise. What do you think about all this?
I think the first thing to say is, as a CLP chair, this is a very difficult thing to comment on because, and this is very important for the rest of the discussion, we are not meant to comment on active disciplinary cases. That goes for me, that goes for everyone in the Labour Party, and that goes for Keir Starmer, who has done nothing but comment on this. So let's just set that one straight as a big
I get
problem.
out.
It's a big problem. So I'm only commenting on this because the leader of the Labour Party saw fit to not only comment on it, but also, in my view, he misrepresented what Jeremy Corbyn said. So let's go back. I don't think you can separate this out from the HRC document. The HRC document, I read it in full. I'm not sure how many people did read it in full, but I think it was very important to read it in full. I had very, very, I had very positive feelings generally about it. It was hard to read that people in the Labour Party were behaving in an anti-Semitic manner. And what I already knew to be the case, our disciplinary processes, our complaints process was absolutely abominable. It was terrible. And until 2018, it remained absolutely terrible, and it improved a lot, and it still needs to improve. What happened in 2018? Jenny Formby became General Secretary. So that is in the EHRC report, that the Labour Party disciplinary processes improved a lot. Okay, so, there was a stumbling block before 2018. You can work out for yourselves what people might think that stumbling block was. So people who are working for the Labour Party appear not to have been dealing with this very well. And that has been attributed to the leader of the Labour Party at the time. For me, it's a separate thing. It's kind of like you've got the General Secretary who runs the staffing of the Labour Party, and you've got the leader who provides the political leadership. So really, anything to do with staff should go General Secretary. Anything to do with politics should go to the leader of the Labour Party. That's my view. I think that's sensible. That's what I would feel within the trade union movement. I think a lot of people find that very difficult to understand who haven't worked closely with the trade union movement. There's a lay side and there's a paid side, and they're separate, but work together. And a lot of people in the Labour Party are also members of the Labour Party who are staff as well. So that's an important thing to say. The other thing that I think is important to say is echoing what Samantha said, which is really important. No one's talking about Jewish people in this. Like, it's very rarely mentioned, the fact that they have been used in this awful way where their suffering has been exacerbated by the way this crisis has been dealt with. It's been dealt with badly by the Labour Party. It's been dealt with badly this time again. And we're talking about Jeremy Corbyn rather than speaking about Jewish people who yesterday there was an attack on a synagogue in Vienna. And, you know, anti-Semitism is very real, very terrifying. And I will stand with every single Jewish person, and I'll physically put myself on the line if it comes to it. If I need to defend a Jewish person, I will physically put myself on the line, because that's what we do. That is absolutely what our purpose is. And I'll do that, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. So please don't be afraid, the Jewish community. And I think that, again, I'll come back to that phrase in a second, because the Jewish community is as diverse as any other community of opinion, of background, of social status, of wealth. They are as diverse as everyone else. So to refer to them as a community in sort of their opinion, as if it's a homogenous opinion, is also incorrect. We shouldn't do that. But anytime anyone who's a Jewish person, who identifies as Jewish, who is Jewish religiously or ethnically Jewish, please do ask for help if you need it, because we'll be there. Okay, so that's a very important thing. The next thing I'd like to move on to is the media. So the media have portrayed what Jeremy Corbyn has said. I'd like us to look at what Jeremy Corbyn has actually said, because I've heard Jeremy Corbyn has said some absolutely terrible things. And Keir Starmer has replied that he said it was just political, and it was just Labour's enemies within and his enemies within and outside the party. Just that. That was the only thing. So this is what Jeremy Corbyn said. Anti-Semitism is absolutely abhorrent, wrong, and responsible for some of humanity's greatest crimes. As leader of the Labour Party, I was always determined to eliminate all forms of racism and root out the cancer of anti-Semitism. I have campaigned in support of Jewish people and communities my entire life, and I will continue to do so. The AHRC's report shows that when I became Labour leader in 2015, the party's processes for handling complaints were not fit for purpose. Reform was then stalled by an obstructive party bureaucracy. But from 2018, Jenny Formby and a new NEC that supported my leadership made substantial improvements, making it much easier and swifter to remove anti-Semites. My team acted to speed up, not hinder the process. Anyone claiming there's no anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is wrong. Of course there is, and throughout society, and sometimes it's voiced by people who think of themselves on the left. Jewish members of our party and the wider community were right to expect us to deal with it, and I regret that it took longer to deliver that change than it should. One anti-Semite is too many, but the scale of the problem was also dramatically overstated for political reasons by our opponents inside and outside the party, as well as much of the media. That combination hurt Jewish people and must never be repeated. My sincere hope is that relations with the Jewish communities can be rebuilt and those fears are overcome. While I do not accept all of its findings, I trust recommendations will be swiftly implemented to help move on from this period. So, did Jeremy Corbyn say it was just politically motivated? Did he say there was no problem? Did he say he rejected the AHRC recommendations, all of which has been reported? Well, no, he didn't. He didn't do that. So then we've moved to a situation where he's been suspended by the leader of the Labour Party, which isn't in the leader of the Labour Party's remit. And had the leader of the Labour Party read that document, which I believe he should have done, and I'm sure he did, and he's from the legal profession himself, what was he doing interfering and suspending Jeremy Corbyn when it expressly said not to do that? The leader's office should not be involved in suspensions, even though the problem in the AHRC report was that Jeremy Corbyn's office had got involved, and on those occasions, a lot of the times, it was to speed up the process and suspend people. It doesn't matter whether it's to suspend people or not.
Just to interrupt you, Paul, what struck me particularly about it was that he said that, and before he gave his next interview, almost, he was being told by a photographer that he'd been suspended. And it was, what possible process can have been followed between him making that statement and then being informed that he'd been suspended? There was no time for any process to have been followed whatsoever. And I think this is what Sam was referring to, that sort of how and nobody will admit to doing it, by the way. Who suspended him, and on what grounds?
Well,
And by what
Keir
process?
Starmer says it was David Evans, but then he also said that I was right to act swiftly and suspend him, and he said it in the same interview. So it was both David Evans and himself, both of whom the ARC report would consider to be part of the leadership of the party, which should not be getting involved in the
Do you
process.
think that this was set up so that as soon as Corbyn spoke, they were ready to move on it? That's the suspicion for me. That sort of, they said, he'll say something and we're ready for him. And sort of, do you suspect that the sort of whatever he'd said, they'd have found something in there to suspend him? Is that a fair comment to make, or is it over egging the pudding, do you think?
I'm not sure we can ever know that, because he did kind of say that it was exaggerated by political opponents without much clarification. Maybe he should have left that out. Personally, I would have done that, but they've given him just that crumb of like, maybe he said it for this reason, and then you can twist that to he meant this, he meant that.
Okay, two things. First of all, if you'd have been Starmer, you stand up in the morning, you say, we are not going to accept any of this, you're out. If you so much as breathe a word that there's less anti-Semitism than you might think in the Labour Party, you are out. And then sort of, you've said it. Do you not think that if you were Starmer, would you not have been stotting about what Corbyn said almost immediately on your coattails about that? And it's that line, isn't it? Sort of, it was exaggerated, overstated, or I can't remember the exact word, for political reason. Would you not have seen that as incendiary?
It depends whether you are interested in what actually happened and what it actually said, or whether you were interested in what the media said it said. Because the media said it said something different to what it actually said. So personally, no, I wouldn't have been angry. I would have been arguing the entire time that yes, anti-Semitism is a problem in the Labour Party, but yes, the Labour Party is on the whole a very safe place for Jewish people. Jewish people help build the Labour Party. Jewish people will continue to be part of the Labour Party. I want them to feel safe in the Labour Party. So I actually think that a statement around that is very important. So I might have looked at what Jeremy Corbyn said and says, oh, is that a statement telling Jewish people, don't worry in the Labour Party, we've got your back, you know, it isn't as bad as people say, but we will root them out, and it isn't not a problem. And also, I would go back to the media again, who are completely supportive of certain regimes. And you've got the Conservative Party, who have completely jumped all over this and saying that Labour Party is full of anti-Semitism, but will openly back Viktor Orban, who is openly anti-Semitic. Now, anti-Semitism is not just a problem in the Labour Party. It is a problem in the Labour Party. It's a problem in society, and it is a problem in the Conservative Party, and it is a problem around the world. And we need to acknowledge all of that. And that is the message that needs to go out. Otherwise, Jewish people won't continue to suffer.
I mean, one thing that I really feel strongly here is that I share your despair that sort of we're not talking about the evil of anti-Semitism. We're talking about the political outworking of it, and we just get trapped in this every time. But I've got one last question for you, Paul, and then I'm going to bring this discussion to an end. Has Starmer made a huge goof? Because the EHRC report explicitly says that Labour Party members are allowed to question the extent of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. It says so in as many words. And sort of, now I know that Starmer's said otherwise. We want our party to be one where we don't question that. But the EHRC report, when you read it, says otherwise. Do you think he's rushed ahead to stick the knife in and he's made a mistake?
Yes. absolutely unequivocally. I think legally he's on very shaky ground as well, because he has immediately gone against the recommendations of the EHRC report.
So, what's the way out of this for the Labour Party? What way out? And I'm going to come to you, Sam, in 2 seconds. So, Stuart, I'm going to leave you alone for obvious reasons. Sort of, Paul, what does the Labour Party need to do now?
Start treating each other like we are on the same side. There was an article by our former MP, Phil Wilson, which basically says, let's get rid of socialism. Now we've got rid of Corbyn, let's get rid of socialism. He didn't say the Jewish community have been treated absolutely awful. This is a terrible, terrible thing that has happened. He might have mentioned it in passing, but the thrust of the article was get rid of socialists from the Labour Party. And we need to treat each other like we're on the same side.
We've overrun by a quarter of an hour on this, and poor old Catherine is waiting in the waiting room. Sorry, Catherine. Sam, what needs to happen?
Yeah, I just think members need to go to their meetings and talk to each other. And obviously you can't go to physical meetings anymore, but we're all got Zoom and Teams now. And I think just this kind of as close to face-to-face conversation as you can get is the best thing you can do to bridge that gap that Paul was just talking about there.
Thank you very much. Listeners, have you not just heard the most amazing, frank, honest, insightful, self-critical, analytical discussion of a very difficult sort of issue? Thank you so much, members, for what you've said. And now can we have some music, Paul?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I've admitted Catherine, but she's nowhere to be seen. Is she about anywhere? Oh, here she is.
Comes.
Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Hello.
I missed all that bit there.
Oh, did you? Have you just been?
The discussion was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I have to say, I think we all know that if Jeremy Corbyn had left the house that day and said, "Oh, isn't the weather nice today?" it has still been suspended. So that was decided long before that report came out.
Well, okay. Sort of, you are a candidate. You're on the panel. You've passed.
Yeah, I've gone through the first stage.
So what we're going to do is we're just allowing people to see our candidates. You're going to be going to a branch or branches and sort of make me a candidate. And so this is your opportunity to sort of tell us about yourself. And I ask the first question, they're the same every time to everybody. Why do you want to be a Labour County Councillor?
Well, that's a question I've been asking myself, John. I think want is a word that maybe doesn't really come into it, because I think it's somebody would be pretty daft to want to be a politician in today's toxic environment, especially if you're a woman, I think. But I would say that I feel more compelled because I look around me and I see people are so disengaged and disillusioned with politics. And they're so disenfranchised and they don't have a voice. And I think somebody has to go out there and try and be that voice for them and encourage others to make that choice for themselves as well. Because, if somebody's going to look at me and say, well, if she's done it, then I'm sure I can do it. And get out there and get involved. That's basically it.
I think that's a fabulous answer.
Yeah, I mean, I know what I want to do. What I want to do is go and live in a little cottage in Wales and grow my own vegetables and keep some chickens. But every time I see some kind of injustice or something, then despite trying my best, I just feel I have to get involved and say something about it. So,
Paul Daly.
So I'd just like to know what particular things you would like to do as a county councillor if you were elected.
Well, my background is in the other type of counselling, therapeutic counselling. And I'm very interested in people's well-being and mental health. So I'd like to get involved in sort of the well-being side of it. I'm also very passionate about the environment. And I'd kind of like to see those two things come together, because we have a lot of, especially with COVID, with what's been happening, our green spaces have become really important. And I'd like to see, look at imaginative ways we can use our green spaces in a kind of therapeutic way for the community, especially people with, they may have sensory needs or disabilities as well. I don't think that's catered enough for, and make them accessible. But generally for the general population as well, to find somewhere we can use our spaces just better for the community, and protect those spaces from, I know there's a lot of changes to the planning laws that are a bit worrying, and I wouldn't like to see us lose any more of our green spaces, although building houses is important. But I think with COVID, we need to look at the way we've been living our lives and make some changes. So that's kind of what I'd like to see.
You've been spending more time on your allotment. I mean, has this influenced you at all? I mean, it's been enforced in a way, hasn't it? But I mean, do you think you've learnt anything from the lot?
Well, I've always liked gardening, John, and it's not my allotment, it's my daughter's allotment. We've kind of sort of halved it. But yes, I mean, that has been a godsend for people, and I think people have been allowed to go to the allotments, which is great. But I think being outside, and you just get grounded, don't you? You just like realize what's important, and there's an empowerment in growing your own food, even if it's just something on a windowsill, and it's being connected with that process. I mean, we've seen the changes that's going to happen with the new laws about lowering food standards and things, and I think people are so disconnected with the process of food and things that they don't really realize how processed our food is, and that effect it has on people. Well, if you grow your own food and you eat something fresh from the garden, it feels totally different. You're so involved with that whole process. And I think people need the opportunity to do that. Yeah, more allotments. Let's get some more allotments.
I was particularly interested when you talked about the fact that you wanted to make an impact in mental health and well-being. Lucy Hovels, who's one of our senior councillors in the CLP, she is the chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, which liaises between the council's policies and officers and the CCG. And sort of gets involved in the overview. So you can, if you become a councillor, you'll be able to be involved at the very highest level if you get yourself on that board. And the other one, of course, is when you talk about the environment, the chair of scrutiny at Durham County Council is Eddie Adam, who is the councillor for West Ward. So you are directly linked in to those people straight away. Sam, what's your question?
Hello, Kathy.
Hi.
What party work, campaigns or community campaigns have you been involved in?
Right. Well, I joined the party about 5 years ago now, is it? I think it was my third meeting when I came out of it as a candidate for the town council.
Yeah.
Much to my surprise. But I think my entire political career so far has been, no one else will do it. Oh God, all right, I'll do it then. But I have enjoyed it immensely. So I've been involved in, I mean, I'm vice chair membership for the CLP. I'm branch secretary for Aycliffe Northwest branch. I'm women's officer there too. Not that I want to hog all those roles, but nobody else wanted to be women's officer, so the women's officer. Yeah, I've been involved in various campaigns, being out in the cold, knocking on doors, leafleting, the NHS campaign, the railway, renationalisation of the railway campaign, the schools cuts campaign. So I've done a fair bit of that. with the COVID, I set up the Aycliffe COVID page, which I think, especially at the beginning of the first lockdown, we were getting information out there. I've got a little team together. They've been excellent, and putting the information out there where people can get help and where they can go. And we've helped a few people behind the scenes. We didn't set up a volunteer teams. We kind of like siphoned volunteers people who want to volunteer off to Junction 7, a few other places around the town, because they're already set up with, volunteer insurance and all that kind of thing. So we were finally funneled people off there, but we did help 1 or 2 people ourselves behind the scenes. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That was one of the things I found when COVID kicked off, wasn't it? Lots of people wanted to do everything, and you kind of had to put the brakes on it and say, okay, but is it responsible for us to do this? And as we know, as you know, with working with the council, it's all about working in partnership with other organisations who know their stuff, and who have the proper safety checks and insurance and all of the boring paperwork and stuff in place. But yes, just before I came on here, I was talking to the local IT support people about what they need to do now we're going into another lockdown. It's been hugely important, hasn't it? I know you didn't come naturally to Zoom. You've had to go through a personal journey.
I've kicked and screamed but got there. Well, it wouldn't work for starters, but now I've got it working. I just have to get used to seeing myself on screen, which is horrible. Yeah. I much prefer the radio, John.
You've been absolutely fantastic, Catherine, and thank you so much for coming on.
That's okay.
It is stressful for people, but it's equally important that members see the candidates and see the quality of candidates we've got. And I think you've really hit double top for me. One, in your motivation, and secondly, in your aspirations of what you want to achieve. And finally, thirdly, in the record of your work for the party and for the community, and particularly your COVID thing, which you understated. It was massively important in you to make it in those early days. Thank you so much. We're going to kick you off now and say goodbye.
Okay,
and,
all right, bye-bye.
And so
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks so
much.
much.
Come on again, you never know.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. God bless you, Catherine.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you chucking me off, or do I have to leave?
No, you can leave if you want. We're going to right. We've got Mark Rattigan coming to join us. I'm just going to skip the question about the BBC and LGBT. I'm going to go straight onto the. Right. We've got Mark Rattigan.
Oh, Mark, you need to turn your computer.
Mark's on a delay.
Turn your.
Hi, Mark.
Can you hear me now?
Hiya, Mark. Well done.
Hello.
It's lovely to see you. Mark's joining us to talk about our final topic of the evening, which is not going to be as long as everybody hoped, about the US election. And
I've got a bit of a question, Joe. I've got a bit of not a long question, but you know me, I've got a bit of a question. So, shall I do it afterwards, or have we got time to do it now?
I think we just go with the question now.
Just go with the question.
Are you happy with that? Sort of, Samantha, you were ready to lead on this. Are you happy to yield?
Yeah.
Go, Samantha, if you want to go first.
No, you
get the
first.
question done.
No problem.
Yeah.
In the first presidential TV debate in 1960, I'm going back a bit now, when then Vice President Richard Nixon stood against the then Senator JFK, John Kennedy. Kennedy started his opening statement quoting the 16th president of the United States. He said, Lincoln, in the election of 1860, said the question was whether the nation would exist half slave or half free. In this election, and with the world around us, the question is whether the world will exist half slave or half free, whether it will move in the direction of freedom. In this election, America faces yet again another big and profound question. And this is whether America will continue its long struggle for progress for everybody. As Obama said, what makes America exceptional are the bonds that hold together the most diverse nation on earth. The belief that our destiny is shared, that our country only works when we accept certain obligations to one another, and to future generations, so that the freedom that so many Americans fought for and died for comes with responsibility as well as rights. And among these are love, charity, duty, and patriotism.
Right,
That's
Mark, hang on.
sorry.
Okay, thank you. What is the question as regards the US election?
I will go to the question. What do you make of Team Biden's efforts in this campaign to focus on unity? And
Brilliant. Let's just take that.
Yep.
Let's take this. Brilliant question. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to come back to you for what you think about that. Sam,
Yep.
Team Biden.
Gosh, but that's actually quite difficult, isn't it? Because everybody's focused on Trump. It's like anybody but Trump, like, please. So I think we've got this situation again, haven't we, where they've decided that the most socialist sort of outlook is not a vote winner, and that they're going to go with kind of a centre left-ish. But you don't really have the left in America. That's another problem, isn't it? Everything is kind of skewed to the right anyway. So I think it's good. I think his appointment as a vice president candidate was good. I think there's been lots of stuff said about Kamala Harris, but at the end of the day, voices tend to be very loud when there's an opportunity to tear down a black woman. So I don't think that all of the criticism that's been leveled against her is fair. And the fact that he has brought a black woman on, and the fact that he's been working with Barack Obama is great. I think the unities more or less come from the Biden camp, who have been fighting themselves and encouraging their friends to say, you know, this really is, it's not quite socialism or barbarism, it's as close as we can get to socialism or Trump, which is just an absolute nightmare for the whole world, not just
That's
America.
smashing. Yeah, Stuart, you've sat silent for so long.
Yeah.
But, sort of talk to us, Stuart.
I take it this is a bit bigger question than just, you know, the way that we talk about, you know, uniting the left here. It's about uniting all the peoples of America and uniting their vision going forward. And I think of the two options on the table, Biden's clearly going to be a better force for that kind of change in America, because Trump's power base is based on division and separating one group's future from another. So has he been, you know, masterful in creating, you know, a united idea of where America should be and what America is? Probably not. Is he the sensible option if you want to have a decent life and a future that you can imagine and then achieve? I think he is, yeah.
Is he too old, Stuart?
No one's too old. No such thing, is there?
I mean, Trump has been criticising him as being doddery. Do you not think that's a weakness?
No, because I'm 35 and I've got like the body of an 80-year-old. So were people to pick me bits on my age, it wouldn't really work, would it? So there's lots of people who are getting on in years that have, you know, the experience and they're prepared and they've got the lifestyle that will allow them to go on and do good.
I mean, has he made any mistakes? I mean, I think he's given the situation. Actually, he's managed to stagger through without much mud or mistakes. I mean, but sort of, I'm not an expert. What's your comment on that?
I think if he had made any real mistakes, they're not really going to be picked up on, you know, the way that Trump, because his mistakes are like such huge national blunders, aren't they? You know, it's such like a circus clown type mistake where it becomes comedy and parody in itself near instantly across the internet. That any, you know, the things that people nitpick with Biden aren't really on the same scale. They're not on the scope, are they?
Do you think, one last question, Stuart, do you think that it is a situation where the focus is still on not Trump rather than yes, Biden? That Biden's strength lies not in his personal self, but in just antipathy to Trump?
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly where the discussion's been going even here. But that's not to say that Trump, that Biden doesn't have, all the qualities that you want in a leader. It's just that Trump's lack of qualities are so staggering that that's just the natural kind of talking space. It's where people are going to gravitate to.
Who do you think is going to win?
I hope Biden.
But
really
don't
hope.
think. Paul, very, very brief statement. We're just about to run out of time, as you'll see, and I want to talk to Mark before we go. What's your estimation of the Biden campaign?
So going back to what Mark was saying about bringing people together and love and things like that. Actually, this is one of the things I think the Democratic Party have got right. I would have preferred to have seen Bernie Sanders getting the nomination, but Bernie Sanders and all the people on the left have been brought in. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's behind me, she's been brought into the campaign. She's campaigned really, really firmly for that. Now, if we'd have seen that level of commitment towards a Labour government from all the people who consider themselves to be under the Labour Party banner in 2019 and 2017, if they'd have campaigned like that and not let themselves be split by Brexit and not like, actually, let's move it away from a Brexit election. Let's focus on decency, good homes for people, good healthcare, that kind of positive, hopeful message. I actually do think they've done more of a positive, hopeful campaign than they have done of anti-Trump. To be honest, I think they've done quite a bit of anti-Trump, but Trump does that himself, doesn't he? He says things and then people are like, oh God, what's he saying? Whereas I think they've actually focused on quite a positive message. It's not a transformative socialist platform that I would like to see, where more people higher taxation on the super rich and, and a fairer society. But it's a step towards that. And they are talking about better healthcare for Americans, where American healthcare can bankrupt someone very, very easily. So it's a big step in the right direction, and it was nice to see everyone on board with that. I would hope we would have seen the same had Sanders got the nomination, and I would like to see the same in the UK, and I wish we'd have seen it when Corbyn was in charge of the Labour Party.
So do I. Thank you so much for that statement. Mark, you've got a minute, and sort of then I'm going to bring the programme to an end. Thank you for your question.
No problem.
Which was a really good question, and you'll see that it made the team think. What would your answer be? How do you think Team Biden have done?
Very quickly, I think they've done very well. I agree with a lot of what was said there. I think that going back to 2016, the Clinton v. Bernie race was very, very polarizing. It was very tight as well, which didn't help. They had a convention that a lot of people were disappointed that Bernie didn't get the nomination. This time around, we've got to remember that a lot of people saw Clinton as the divisive figure in 2016. Trump is now the divisive figure in this race, and that's we've got to understand that. I think that a lot of people don't see Biden as the divisive figure this time. I think they see him as the unifying figure. And one last thing, I think this is all about Biden winning this race and setting the Democratic Party on a path for future generations and for a woman president, hopefully.
Well, that sort of is so old, we might get a woman president sooner than you think. Last question, Mark. Do you think Biden is going to win?
Yes.
There you are, Stuart.
I don't say things like definites anymore. I've been proven wrong too many times.
Very
Well,
wise. You'll
count
never
Trump out.
win any money on the horses. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. You'll see my team could have gone talking then another half hour on all these things. But I'm shutting them up. I'm bringing the thing to an end. We've had our hour, and I hope you enjoyed the program today. I thought it was spectacular today. The depth of insight. What we're going to do now, as we always do, we're going to listen to No Pass Around, and we're going to go and make ourselves a cup of coffee, and we're going to gather back there, and Samantha then will take us through your comments. Hopefully there are some, and if there's not, there's something wrong with you, and get typing away if you want something, ram it in at the last moment. We'll hopefully see you, but if it's time, if you're going home now, you've had enough, well, goodbye, God bless you, thank you very much indeed, but hopefully see you in 4 minutes time after No Pass Around. Say goodbye, everybody, to the people who are going.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
We'll hopefully see you in a little while. Thank you.
Keep the red flag flying, dear.